Nandito na naman tayo para pag-usapan ang kapakanan ng bawat kabataan.
Pag-uusapan natin yan ng masinsinan.
Ito ang TalKabataan, recognizing the voice of the youth. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
Mapya guys, salikanulangon.
Good day to all of you.
I am Rasheed Sendad.
And I am Fatima Almaira Gonzales. And we are your hosts for today.
So partner, kamusta ka?
Okay na ako, partner. Ikaw?
Naku partner, okay na rin ako since nalaman ko na okay ka na rin. Ang ganda ng gamit mo partner.
Ikaw din, partner, ha? Parang nakaayos na ngayon.
Mukha kang bartender. Anyway, ano nga bang pag-uusapan natin ngayon, partner?
Yes, partner. Ang pag-uusapan natin ngayon ay about sa fundamentals of peacebuilding. At alam mo ba, partner, kung sino makakasama natin ngayon?
Oo nga, partner. Sino nga ba?
Yes, ang makakasama natin ngayon ay ang project manager ng forumZFD Cotabato. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Bobet Dimaukom.
So sir, kamusta ang araw mo, sir?
Okay naman, maganda, masaya. Maraming salamat for inviting me sa programa ng radio.
Thank you rin po, sir.
And thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes.
Anyway, going back to our main topic, which is the fundamentals of peace building, may mga naset kami na questions para sa iyo, sir.
Yes, sir. Since we are talking about peace building, our first question, sir, is for you, what is peace?
Sige, maraming salamat, Fatih at Rasheed, sa question. To be honest, yung question very interesting. And na-realize ko na it's really difficult to define peace.
Yes.
And I will only agree doon sa mga sinasabi nila na it is one of the highly contested word in terms of definition. Kasi ako, I believe, when we talk about peace, it relies heavily on an individual's background, an individual's context, yung experience ng individual. Kasi ito yung tatlong na-mention ko kanina, ito yung mga factors na nag-form part sa pagbuo ng isang ideal ng peace. So if an individual thinks about what is peace, i-consider niya kung ano yung kanyang background, ano yung kanyang context, kung nasaan siya ngayon, at saka kung ano yung kanyang mga experiences. Kasi dyan niya huhugutin kung ano yung gusto niya maging image ng peace. And in that sense, I would say na peace is something that is defined individually and is shaped by the individual's different context, background, and experiences. I would not say na merong isang definite definition across the board, no, for everyone. I really believe na yung definition ng peace is nagva-vary siya depending on the outlook of the individual.
I agree with you, sir. Tama talaga yung sinabi niyo, sir, na wala talagang exact definition ang peace.
And I also believe na talagang ang meaning ng peace ay nakadepende sa kung paano natin siya
True, exactly.
Yes. Since nalaman na natin yung pwedeng maging meaning ng peace, sir, ang next question namin is, how do we start peace?
Okay, ito yung I think interesting na question na na-receive ko in my entire career. How do we start peace? Salamat for asking this question. Kasi for me, answering this question, it would need for me to take a lot of steps back. Kasi when you answer the question, how do you start peace? You have to consider nasa ang state ka ba ngayon. So what I would say is for us to take a step back and really answer a more fundamental question, which is how do we handle conflicts? No? Kasi the way we handle conflicts, it's a deciding point whether it will lead into a resolution or it will escalate into violence. So when it escalates into violence, syempre that's not a perfect time or a moment for you to ask yourself, how do I start peace? I think ang pinaka-immediate response doon is how to mitigate the conflict and how to ensure na mayroong spaces for dialogue. No? That's the other hand. That's the one hand. On the other hand, if magre-result siya, no, the way you handle conflict results into a conflict resolution, I think that's also a time na you ask yourself, okay, how do I start this? And it's at that point, no, when you think about, okay, gusto kong i-build yung relationship, i-rebuild yung relationship na medyo nagkaroon ng gap because of the conflict. Gusto kong masustain yung resolution ng conflict para hindi na siya maulit at hindi na siya mag-recur in the future. So, going back to the question, how do I start peace? I first try to assess, am I at the right stage of the conflict na start peace? No, starting peace requires an environment that is conducive for peace to prosper. And at some certain context, hindi ganun kadali siyang ma-achieve kasi dependent pa rin siya doon sa environment. So, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, how do I handle conflict? And if it leads into a conflict resolution or resolution of conflict, doon na tayo mag-aasap sa sarili. How do we start peace? And let's really go to the core of peace, no? Which is the relationship. Pag-rebuild ng relationship kasi ito yung fundamental talaga na essence ng peace. That we are all part of a society, we are all related to each other. Kaya rebuilding the relationship will help us, find the right atmosphere for peace.
Wow. Alam mo, ngayon pa lang, partner, marami na ako nakukuha kay sir.
Yes, ako rin. And talagang ngayon ko lang din nalaman na talaga sa environment pala talaga nag-umpisa ang peace. By the way, sir, tatanong ko lang, sir, for you, nag-umpisa na bang peace sa ating society dito sa lugar ng Bangsamoro? Or in your opinion?
Well, in my opinion, I think we are at a stage na kailangan din natin i-define what type of peace do we have. No? Kasi meron tayong iba't ibang klase ng peace. When we talked about the fundamentals of peace building, may iba't ibang klase ng peace. Merong negative peace, merong positive peace, and the peace that I shared with you before sa ating journey, no, and I think this is where we are at the moment, is we are at a stage na imperfect pa yung peace. Kasi there are spaces for dialogues, there are spaces for development. Nakikita natin na nag-progress yung pag-improve ng relationship, pero we are still far away from really achieving yung positive na peace na sinasabi natin. And it's a good thing, no? Kasi when we think na nasa positive peace na tayo na spectrum, what else is there to do? Aside from, of course, sustaining the gains or ensuring na hindi siya na-disturb ng mga conflicts that continue to pop up. But still, we're still a long way from that, no? And there's still a lot of work to do. And to answer your question lang, Rasheed, I think I would say na we are still at that stage na imperfect yung peace, and we are working to make it a better kind of peace that will lead towards a positive peace na gusto natin ma-achieve in the future.
I am interested with the positive and negative peace, but siguro hindi ito yung perfect time para pag-usapan ito, and we need to have another talk with that. But let's continue with our next question.
So, sir, what might be the exact definition of peace building?
Generally, yung peace building naman, it's a long-term process, no, of applying the different fundamental concepts of dialogue, negotiations, no. But I think the more important question is not really identifying what peace building is, but what comes along with building peace. Kasi when you do peace building, or rather, it's not enough that we build peace. I think what is also important is that we sustain at ma-maintain natin yung peace na somehow na-build na natin. And it is in that context ba na we should not be limited to identifying what peace building is, but also going beyond, no? Like asking ourselves, okay, once na-build na ang peace, how do we make sure that it stays there or na ma-sustain siya? Kasi otherwise, uulit at uulit yung cycle, no, na magkakaroon ng conflict, ng violence, tapos peace, and again and again, no, ganun yung magiging cycle. Pero there could be ways na we can build peace, sustain the peace, and not necessarily prevent conflict, kasi we all know conflict is normal, but also looking at conflict to be looking at conflict to be something as an opportunity ganyan. So yun, I think when you say defining peace building, it's really more about finding what brings us all together, yung common aspiration natin as community members, as different sectors, and building upon that to ensure na healthy yung relationship. Merong spaces for conflict, but we take it as an opportunity, no? Not as something to be worried about or something that that should cause too much problem.
And sir, since na-mention nyo na rin po yung ways to do peace building, idediretso na rin po natin yung sagot. what are the fundamentals? Since yun yung topic natin, partner, no? What are the fundamentals of peace building?
Okay, good question. I was asking myself this kanina, ano ba talaga yung mga fundamentals ng peace building? And I realized na peace building itself is a fundamental concept, no? Very necessary concept for us to understand when we try to engage into peace and conflict work. And generally, when I think about the fundamental concepts of peace building, what comes to my mind is yung ating awareness, no, sa mga basic concepts. Let's say conflict. How do we understand conflict? How do we understand violence? What are the types of violence, or what are the types of conflict? What is peace? What are the kinds of peace, and where are we at the moment? No, trying to look at yourself into the whole picture and where it is at the moment. At saka yung iba pang mga klase ng mga concepts and theories na interrelated when we talk about peace and conflict work. Like for example, yung concept ng yung also having concrete awareness and understanding sa mga fundamental concepts of active non-violence, of trauma sensitivity, of gender. So if you have not necessarily a very deep, no, or concrete understanding, but just enough awareness on these different concepts. So if you just have, you don't necessarily have to have a very deep understanding now of each and every fundamental concept. But as long as you have knowledge and aware ka that these concepts exist, this will already help you parang understand what peace building is all about and what are the fundamental concepts of peace and conflict work. And if you notice, parang I try to also be inclusive, no, not only talking about the fundamentals of peace building, but making it more generalized, no, by saying it's more peace and conflict work, that's what we do. Kasi it's a factor, it's an important factor, conflict, na always present but sometimes overlooked. And we tend to forget when it's what causes us to react to a situation that improves the way we do peace and conflict work, peace building.
And we are very fascinated by the answers of yours, sir.
Actually, ang hirap ng mga questions natin, no?
Yes, and
Ang hirap, kahit siguro ako, hindi ko yung masasagot.
yes,
Yeah.
but greatly magaling yung ating speaker
Speaker
na
namin.
naimbitahan, and we're very happy for that. No, and
And, yeah, siguro hindi, kulang yung time natin ngayon, no?
yes,
Pero,
yes,
nasagot
kulang na
naman
kulang.
siya, nasagot naman siya ng
At least,
maayos,
nagkaroon tayo-
maganda, at ng clear.
And nagkaroon yung mga viewers natin, yung mga RYLOves natin ng idea patungkol sa fundamentals of peace building.
Tama yan, partner. Kahit ako, nadadala yung knowledge ko about peace building.
Yes, and that's a great thing.
Yes, and sir, lastly, what are your message to all of our viewers and especially the youth?
Sige, maraming salamat ulit, Fati and Rasheed. Gusto ko lang i-emphasize talaga that in my personal view, no, and in my experience as a peace and conflict worker, I've always seen the youth sector to be the sector that has the biggest potential to become peace agents or agents of change, and that still stands true even up to this day. And this is why tayo sa forumZFD, ini-encourage natin talaga, no, and in-empower natin yung participation, yung involvement ng mga kabataan, especially on these courses that would help them understand why conflict continues to happen, why conflict eventually sometimes it escalates into violence, and what can be done about those kinds of situations. I think the youth has so much potential in the sense that they bring in a different kind of energy, and of course yung inquisitiveness, yung assertiveness, yung characteristic ba na very curious, no? I think these are very important ingredients to finding out why does it always happen, why does it continue to occur, and ano kaya ang magandang approach na gawain dito. And this is when the fresh ideas and perspectives coming from the youth come really handy, kasi especially sa context ng Bangsamoro region, of course it's a known factor that it's quite traditional, no, in nature. And sometimes medyo may struggle in terms of asserting the rights of the youth. But I also think that it's about time to really open up spaces for the youth's participation and involvement. And I think from my view, I see that there are a lot of different youth organizations who are working hard to make their voices being heard and considered in a lot of political discourses and decision making. And we wanted to support this. We wanted to highlight na mahalaga ang boses ng kabataan, ang participation ng kabataan bilang isang importanteng sector ng ating society. Especially at a part or at a stage na we are working towards yung pagpanday ba ng isang peaceful na community. And I hope to see that day na yung ating mga current groups that we work with, like RYLO and other youth organizations, I really want to see them in the future holding a lot of different responsibilities and positions in still ensuring that there is peace, greater peace, not only in Mindanao but also all over the world. So, yun, maraming salamat.
That was very inspiring, partner. And knowing na part tayo ng youth,
Tama, partner.
it is really an honor na magpabilang tayo sa youth and kabilang tayo sa mga kukuha ng message nila. Hindi lang yung mga viewers natin, maging tayo ng mga student
Yes.
leaders.
Ang sabi nga ni Sir Bobet na we are the agent of change.
Yes, and that is very inspiring, partner.
Yes, partner.
Ngayong araw mga RYLOves ay marami na namang tayong natutunan.
Exactly, partner. And thank you, Sir Bobet, for sharing your knowledge with us. And we are sure na marami talagang takeaway sa mga RYLOves natin ngayon.
And we would like to also extend our gratitude to our RYLO members and to our viewers, mga ating RYLOves.
Yes. See you on our next video.
But don't forget to subscribe and like our video and also like our fan page in Facebook. And with that, we say, RYLO for real progress.